continues slow, and Iran has warned that it will target energy and water infrastructure across Gulf countries if the United States attack its power grids, following a 48-hour ultimatum from Donald Trump. And Tehran has also threatened to completely shut the Strait of Hormuz, though it says that the passage remains open to the ships not linked to its adversity. Now the escalations comes as missiles exchanged between Iran and Israel intensify, with fresh strikes triggering air raid sirens and injuries in multiple Israeli cities. Meanwhile, Gulf nations including the UAE and Kuwait and Bahrain have reported drone and missiles interceptions as the conflict enters its fourth week. More than 4,000 people have been killed across the wider West Asia region, according to government and non-government agencies, with more than three-quarters of the fatalities that happened in Iran. All right, but moving on, let's also go across to Times Network Mayank for the latest update from Israel.
Times now has entered inside the premises of Arad, wherein the missile had struck, and it is said to be a ballistic missile, which has created not only the crater here in front of you, and it has created a devastation all around. Most of the buildings, they have the blast shook the entire premises here, and most of the buildings you see, they have lost larger parts of their walls and all. And it is being said that it is ingress to the air defense, which multi-layered air defense of the Israel here. And this is after Dimona was the other side, wherein the bigger crater was created, and we showed you to you live in the morning. And this is creating a problem in the terms of air defenses, because Iran has been able to ingress at multiple points, and 7 at least, that was told to us yesterday. And you can see the devastation, the signs of devastation. And in this case, the earlier crater which was in Dimona, which was around 4 feet, but here it seems to be a deeper crater with a deep ingress into the ground, and the waves and shock has pulverized the buildings all around. And this is Arad, we can see.
And Times Network's Mayank also caught up with the IDF spokesperson. Let's listen into what he had to say.
Well, we're standing here where a ballistic missile had a direct hit. We're in a civilian population in southern Israel, where last night an Iranian ballistic missile was fired. The Iranians have fired over 400 of these ballistic missiles, most of them directed towards civilian population, towards civilian areas like this. We've had many dozens injured, almost 100 people injured just in this location. You can see the damage. You can see buildings. We're going to have thousands of people that have nowhere to live because of this strike. We've had almost 100 people who were injured because of this strike. And this is the Iranian regime. This is who we're fighting, and this is why we have to make sure they can't obtain the ability to do this again.
And there had been talk of that multi-layered air defense of the Israel, which had been, as quoted, successful. But we are finding that lots of ingresses are taking place, which includes Dimona, Arad.
Well, we've had a lot of success. They've fired an enormous amount of missiles. We've been able to intercept more than 90% of it. But even the best aerial defense system in the world is not perfect. And we're going to do everything we can to learn what went wrong here and how we can improve.
Depletion of missile capability of Iran has been talked about. How far have you reached in that? Because they are able to still continue with firing.
Well, we've been able to to neutralize over 70% of their missiles, 70% of their missile launchers, and we're going to keep pushing to get even more than that.
And they introduce a longer-range ballistic missile now?
We saw yesterday the Iranians use a missile that can reach a distance of 4,000 kilometers. And after they specifically said that they only have weapons up to 2,000 kilometers, the Iranian regime has been lying to the world and is a threat to the entire region.
And how far have you reached in your goal, keeping which in mind you started?
Well, we've had a lot of advancement. We've had great achievements, even in some cases faster than we expected. But there's still a ways to go, and we're going to push forward.
All right, and moving on, and Trump says that he's not interested in a ceasefire with Iran, even as he signals the possibility of winding down military operations. And speaking to reporters, Trump said that the U.S. is very close to meeting its objectives while maintaining that now is not the time for a ceasefire. Trump has called on other nations, including NATO allies, China and Japan, to take responsibilities for securing the strait, downplaying its direct importance to the U.S.
And UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called an emergency meeting to assess the economic fallout from the escalating Iran conflict, with the Finance Minister and Bank of England governor set to attend. In the UK, inflation could climb back towards 5% if the energy prices remain elevated. Meanwhile, Pakistan has restricted large sporting events to conserve fuel, while Sri Lanka has hiked the fuel prices sharply for the second time in a week back home. Migrant workers from Surat are returning home after days without cooking gas and the LPG crisis.
And India is beginning to see relief on the energy supply front amid the conflict. An LPG carrier, Pax's Pioneer, has arrived at New Mangalore port carrying over 16,000 tons of cooking gas, with more shipments lined up over the coming days. A Russian crude vessel, Aqua Titan, has been rerouted to India after changing course mid-journey from China, one of the several such diversions in recent days. In total, over 70,000 tons of LPG is expected to arrive in Mangalore route this week, offering support amid signs of domestic supply crunch. Neha joins in with a ground report on this. Neha.
Just off the coast of Mangalore, we're here at the SPM, or the single mooring point of the MRPL, where Russian vessel Aqua Titan, in fact, has made its way here to the port. What, of course, you'd be able to see is it's not just about the crude oil that's being brought in right now from Russia at, of course, nominal prices, but the fact that this is a massive diplomatic win now for the country. Remember, this vessel that you see that's carrying crude oil that would, of course, be transported from the MRPL's pipeline further to the facility and in turn, of course, to the country, is something that now, of course, goes on to mark the kind of significance that this has. Largely, while, of course, this particular tanker here in concern that we're looking at was on its way to China. Remember, it was, in fact, diverted and now brought towards the Mangalore coast. What we also, of course, gather at this point in time is that vessels of the NMPT, of course, that have been brought in here, that are acting as the tug vessels now, in turn, would be ensuring that this entire operation is completed. And largely, of course, given the West Asian crisis at this point, this becomes even more significant, as this would help to stabilize prices across the country, largely fuel prices. More importantly, this is, of course, while one of the vessels that has come in from Russia, we're also gathering that there are likely to be more vessels that are coming in. Times Now, of course, has been on ground from the start, and we would continue to bring you the latest as we've come this up close to this vessel. We continue to bring you the latest on what, of course, this vessel would essentially mean, largely diplomatically, of course, and more importantly, to bring down the fuel prices at a time when most countries still are struggling to be able to manage how to figure out and what essentially they would do during the West Asian crisis that's been impacting all.
And well, moving on then, K-pop supergroup BTS